First song, Overture, The First Turnabout. Music by Catherine Leister. Quoted music by Elizabeth Lawrence, Joel Williams, Justin Briner, Masakazu Sugimori, Matthew Toronto, Sarah Shope, and Sarah Toronto. Orchestral arrangement by Elizabeth Lawrence and Catherine Leister. Go.
Okay, hi. I guess just like breaking it down like bit by bit. I think I started writing this pretty early on. I remember it was also one of the last pieces to be modified because of something that we'll get to here in a minute. But this first opening for the overture is this big brassy August Day motif. So will this phoenix take flight off the ground? And then the da 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 da, which I originally based off of the original in the OG August Day. There's this little music box kind of opening that was, I guess, supposed to like as Nick is like waking up at the start of the show. Since we weren't doing that, I was like, I still want to pay like homage to it in a way, and so this was like, I think, the coolest way I could have done that while still being like, it's still very Turnabout musical, but now has this big like showy kind of Broadway feel to it.
And is the drum roll at the start like the drum roll from the original
timpani,
overture? Yeah.
I don't think intentionally, but yes,
Yeah, there you go.
it is.
Yeah, that one.
I did not think of that. Maybe I did back then, but that's a yes, and
yes. Just go with it.
Yes. Also, this timpani bit in here, that comes up a few times, I think, in this show, where we have a timpani acting as a heartbeat. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I never noticed that.
And so it kind of it gets into that near the end when it picks up, but it starts off sort of slower to keep that kind of grandiose feel. And then as the main melody starts moving out of almost a halftime feel, we get into that. And then it goes right into this reawakening, Here I Am passage, which is, I'm pretty sure, just this piano bit separated out into strings and saxes.
Valid.
That's
arranging, baby.
I remember when that's arrangement, baby. I remember when I was orchestrating, when I arrange stuff, I typically like to assign sounds, usually specific instruments when possible, but like sounds to characters, the way that you might associate like motifs or leitmotifs to a character. The only one I remember, I don't remember what I did for Nick. Seemingly woodwinds. But I remember like Maya was like an oboe or a clarinet most of the time. Oh, Phoenix was a clarinet. Maya was an oboe or vice versa. Edgeworth was very brassy and string heavy. Like Von Karma had like the organ and some other like stuff like that. This entire section, as you're gonna hear, is like underscored completely by the strings, because I was like, that's the most versatile. That's gonna go with like anyone basically. So the strings down here are all playing that reawakening move. I think the first violin here and the second violin have the melody or some cute little harmonies or whatever. You have your woodwinds up here playing the chords basically underneath it while these guys are going insane down here. And which has a weird pass off, but we'll go with it. And then in the brass, you have the brass hitting with with your decree motif, your which specifically I chose. Like when I'm like taking motifs, I'll usually have like a specific phrase that I rip from, even if it's like a repeated melody. I remember distinctly this one I chose the I have gone above and beyond at times. Justice requires the extra mile. I sense right thinks I am blind. If I peered into his mind, then I'd be the one who's on trial. Which is not the words in the TAAAM version, I don't think. But it's what I had in my head.
Yeah.
But I was so happy when the lined up really well with Phoenix's like with like minimal changes to the decree motif.
One's going down, one's going up.
I was pleased as punch, dog. And then even like the da 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 da, like right at the end was perfect. Oh, delicious. Oh, that's right, Edward, this flute as well. And so you have the Nick stuff doing like the now maybe I'm a lawyer after all, or the da 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 da, and you have the and we'll meet again, Phoenix Wright, with the pop up because I have respect, and then here I da 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 da, and getting out of that, transitioning in the woodwinds into the Turnabout Sisters motif with the da 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 da, and then that goes through like this entire section because I love you, Turnabout Sisters theme, and because Maya's important in this show, and you need to know that. You need to know Maya's important in this show. Please, for the love of God. So what is stacking in here? This first section is strictly Turnabout Sisters, so you can hear it. Going into, in the violins down here, from Fight Like a Fae and What Have I Done? Kind of the head up, back straight, while you're staring down your fate. Which I remember distinctly adding to the score in a hotel room with Lizzie and Abby when they were in New York visiting me for graduation. I remember that so distinctly. And for you, I will be there. Here in the brass, you have that little hit, the for you, I will be there, transitioning down here to make it right. I'll have to do something to make it right, into back to What Have I Done specifically. I thought I could change the world, but I couldn't change a thing. Transitioning at the top, or I think everyone going, seeking justice for all. So that's how I work.
And you just follow that formula.
And then that's a
and then
variation on
right
August
at the end, you have Nick's kind of in his music in the game. I think it comes from Objection, but like the that is what is happening in the glockenspiel here. The bum 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 until I needed it to stop, and then up top you have guilty of blaming an innocent man, which is from Decree, and I think pops up a few other times, but it is a very prominent Edgeworth motif.
Yeah, keeping
and
the
so
peace
right at
motif.
the end, that's it. And so my goal with Act 1's Overture specifically, my goal was to like set up every prominent character in Act 1, or like the three that you should really focus on in Act 1. So you have like Nick, Maya, and Edgeworth specifically. And you have hints of Mia sprinkled in as well. The entire like reawakening section is just focusing on Nick, and when the Edgeworth motif comes in, it's focusing on like, it's like, oh, those two are going to like, that relationship is important to focus on as well. And then this entire like C section, Turnabout Sister section, is all Nick and Maya basically, and setting up like how their relationship is just as important as, if not more important, honestly, than Nick and Edgeworth's in this show. And it goes on this huge journey, like just in Act 1 alone. And I wanted to make sure that that was told through the overture as best I could. That took 15 minutes of me yapping. I'm so sorry.
I think we'll get faster.
It's the setup. It's the overture. Yeah.
So this was the second song that I orchestrated. So it was a long time ago. I'm just like looking at the sheet music and being like, oh no, it's all the engraving is bad because this was like the second one that I did. But anyway, yeah, a lot of the first pass was just me kind of like no scoping what instruments to use. And then Kate being like, this is the actual vision that I had for this, so you could change it or I could change it. And then me being like, yeah, you're right. Because I think the first two songs that I orchestrated, I didn't ask first. Because I was like,
Also time-honored tradition.
Yes.
Yeah, just like, hey,
Absolutely.
I've been working on
Oh,
this.
no.
Here you go.
And then you're like,
Guilty.
that's very sweet. I am gonna change it though.
this isn't what I. Yeah, this isn't it, Chief.
Thank you though. That's very sweet.
A couple things did stay the same. Like I did make the first decree section like brass, and that was like, yes, you
Mhm.
did it.
Good job.
Good job. I think the reawakening section, I originally only had it as strings, and you were like, woodwinds, and I was like, you're right. A lot of it was I did the first pass, and then I was like, here you go. You can fix it.
This is another one that had to get changed kind of late in the game because of Fight Like a Fae, right? Like, I don't think there's
Yeah.
a lot of it in
Originally,
here.
It was the old.
May before
There was
production.
that's right. It had in the original and someone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you switched it out
because
for
that's the
head
version.
back straight.
Yes, because that is
Yeah.
the version that was in our announcement video.
Yes, it is.
yeah.
If you want to hear,
Oh.
if you want to go to the very first
2021.
video on the TAAAM channel, that version of
And-
the overture is the older version.
That's the older version. And I remember because someone pointed that out in the general TM server on Discord. They were like, this like one section is different between overtures. What was up with that? And
Wow.
one of us came in and we were like, yeah, we changed it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about
Don't
it.
think too hard about it.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Shut up. Don't worry about it. Like
This is
but
the
yeah,
this is
if-
the tell all secrets revealed. We changed
yeah,
it.
this is our
Yeah.
our tea spilling sesh. But yeah, the overture was one of the ones that was not the first, because again, I think that was what he deserves, but like it was one of
It
the
was early.
first to.
It was
It
early.
was very early,
It's like October.
and then we were like, that sounds about right. And then when Fight Like a Fae was being worked on, the only like stake I remember having in it was like, I just need to know what I'm changing in the overture. Am I changing anything in the overture? That's all I need to know. I am staying out of everything else here. This is not my business.
I
Just
caused
someone give me a
problems.
4-measure phrase. Someone tell me the 4-measure phrase.
We'll get to
We'll get
to
to it.
Flap,
Get
but
there.
we'll tell the whole story because it's several years out now.
Public. Joel
it's
talked about
public.
it in the
Yeah.
fan server,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, it's also public. But yeah, we had a version of Flaff that existed very, very, very early on. And we were like, this is it, this is the version. And then it was not the version. So we have a lot of like, obviously this show is built a lot on like leitmotifs and underscore calling back to earlier songs. And so there was a lot of like last minute changes that had to happen because Flaff changed a lot. But yeah, the overture was one of those first things where we were like, oh, it's got the, oh no, it's different
Wow.
now.
Shit.
But it all worked out.
For sure.
Yes.
Maybe I can talk, just because this is the first song, I can talk a little bit about like the engraving process and the sheet music making process, because this was the first Turnabout musical affiliated show that has all of its sheet music.
Yay.
Yay.
So yeah, when I first joined the project, I was like, I wanted to do I'll Be There as like an audition piece, like the first part of it for like one of my high school shows. And I went to go find sheet music and I couldn't find any.
Thanks, Try.
He's brilliant.
He's
We
so
love trying this out.
so brilliant.
He's so brilliant.
talented.
He also does
It's-
never write sheets
write it
music.
down.
So.
Never writes
Well,
it down.
actually, I think hasn't he started doing sheets for Bit Musical?
I think so.
I think
actually.
so.
Yeah.
Oh.
He can.
Yeah.
He can do it.
Yes.
We also
We
we
love
do have
you.
some of his like original notes of the chords.
It's
That-
just
those
chords.
are actually
It's just
helpful.
Those are
Yeah.
yes, those are so fun. Some of the
There's some funny
scans.
Easter eggs in those. Yeah.
There's some fun,
Yeah.
fun Easter eggs. Maybe I'll talk about this later with I'll Be There. But anyway, so sheet music engraving is just like making sheet music. And it's called engraving because they used to have to like engrave it into stone or whatever, and so that's why it's called engraving, even though it's like printed on paper now. Anyway, so I I like took the charge with engraving, but I was like more like I was kind of a diva with the engraving, and I was like, no, it has to look a certain way.
Yeah, I remember distinctly. There was like
there were guidelines, which I appreciated. You made us a doc of how to do it.
I have the doc pulled up, and it's 10 pages long.
It's consistent graving lot check, you know? It all has to match.
No.
Guidelines are
MuseScore
good.
is very complicated, so you needed to explain all the menus.
It did get to the point where it was like, I'm not going to expect people to do this. I'm just like, you can finish your song and then I will just do the engraving.
Thank you, Lizzie.
I got a little bit ridiculous. Definitely super neurotypical of me in that way.
Just like Overture The Musical.
Seriously.
But yeah, just like super specific stuff, like all of the fonts should be this, all of the like different things should be different font sizes, like the title needs to be this point font, and it needs to be like this kind of stuff needs to be capitalized, this kind of stuff should be like lowercase, lyrics go on like flush right, music goes flush left, and it's all that kind of stuff that I was very crazy about, and I tried to make sure that it was all pretty standardized. And even just looking at this, I'm looking at like measure 11, there's supposed to be double bar lines because it's a key change, and there's not, and it's gonna bother me now.
Just don't look too hard, or you'll have to go back in
Don't
and
worry
fix
about
all
it.
You have to get used to that.
Don't
To be
worry
fair,
about it.
we did less of it with the orchestral sheets.
Yes,
that's true.
Yeah, because we were like, no one's looking at that. Yeah, because
it's not written
There we
to
go.
be playable.
No.
That's true.
You got
It
double bar
depends.
lines right here. It's fine.
Yeah.
We got it.
So that's kind of the sheet music. Maybe when things become more or less relevant, I'll bring other stuff up and we can look at the piano vocal sheets. But yeah, that's that. I did technically do the mastering. It's not professional mastering. It's not real mastering like what you would think of in a professional sense. Basically what I did was my goal was just to make it sound standardized. And so people would finish their sheet music, they would finish their arrangements, they would do whatever, and then they would give the sheet music to me. And then what I would do is I would go through, and there's things called sound fonts. I think some people refer to them as like libraries. It's basically just like a bunch of data that's like how a specific instrument will sound.
Yeah, sound
And there's-
fonts are typically like synthesized versions of like a violin or a trumpet or whatever. There are also samples, which are technically live sampled instruments that are put together to create data that you can have it play that way.
Yeah.
So like I in Finale have a sample library, Garriton instruments that came with Finale, which is technically live sampled instruments. But I think in what we ended up with were mostly sound fonts through MuseScore, which in my opinion sound pretty good.
Yay! It's like Hatsune Miku.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's exactly like Hatsune Miku.
Exactly. So a lot of the instruments I used custom sound fonts. I used Sonatina, which is great. It's a free sound font library, like big pack of instruments. Not all of them. They have their drawbacks. The violin in particular.
There's some characters. We got Greg. We got Mr.
There's
Honk.
some characters.
Mr. Honk, my love.
So Sonatina does not come with saxophones, so I had to kind of shop around for some saxophones. And there's a lot of different ways you can play a saxophone, and so sometimes the sound font that I had picked out was like not the vibe we were going for.
Is it
So
art?
there's it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing.
And if I were using an actual like an actual workspace, like a MIDI program like Logic or whatever, or Ableton, that's like built to do that kind of stuff, it would have been a lot better. But I was using MuseScore to make these mastered backtracks, which is not what you're supposed to do. But I did it anyway, and it worked.
And a lot of that mastering was good to sort of keep everything with a consistent sound. Like in
Yes.
comparison to the original
Yes.
Turnabout musical, every instrumental that came out of that came out of whatever anyone who was making the music had. And it does not sound like it comes from the same show.
Nope.
All the time. Which is,
Yeah.
that's part of the charm of it. It's kind of like Undertale, like it all sounds different. But like, if you're trying to make something that sounds like it exists as a cohesive show, it's nice to have that.
Yeah. So like, there's different drawbacks, like the Sonatina trumpet sound font. does not sound good in the lower register. It just doesn't work. It doesn't sound very nice. So if I have a piece that's using a lot of lower register trumpet, I might just use the default MuseScore sound font and not even use like a custom one. It honestly depends. Also, some sound fonts just break sometimes.
Yeah.
Like my favorite French horn sound font doesn't go up. It doesn't like go up past a certain point. So there's a note, we'll get to it in Anything to Win, where I have it split into 2 French horn tracks. So the bulk of the French horn part is my custom sound font on its own track, and then specifically just the high note is the default MuseScore French horn. Because
to be fair, in Anything to Win, I was looking at the sheets. I don't think French horns can play that high.
No.
I think that's a MuseScore exclusive.
That's why it doesn't go that high, that sample that I was using. Yeah, just little things like that. Maybe as things become relevant, I'll point them out and I'll be like, that was a crazy thing that you don't see because it's behind the scenes.
Fantastic. Let's get on to the next song.